11 years have already passed since the unstoppable skyhook shot entered the NBA. And in that time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has won 1 championship title and 5 MVP awards, and he was the best player of his time. And outside the court, he became Bruce Lee's apprentice, and he learned martial arts and appeared in movies as well. So he was famous even outside of basketball. But aside from all that, he had something on his mind that bothered him, which was the fact he had joined the Lakers but could not bring back a championship for them. Also, he was already 32 years old and getting older, so obviously his performance dropped, and the risk of him getting injuries have also increased. But just then, a helper of Abdul, the player that was expected to make history in the NBA future, Magic Johnson, had become part of the team. He had the height of a typical big man of 6'9", but he was unique and didn't play in the paint zone, and made the passes as the point guard. And his skill was beyond anyone's imagination, and he was very talented. Even though he was a rookie, the Lakers had suddenly become a championship contender. He had passes that would fake out the opponents and even his own teammates, and on all the transitions he would humiliate the opponent's defense. And not just that, he showed amazing performances on not just passes, but points, rebounds, and even steals. As a result, in his first season, he was picked as an all-star in the face of the NBA, and he also led the team to 60 wins and 22 losses, coming first in the league. So Abdul-Jabbar didn't have the pressure of playing as a one-man team anymore, and he was able to show his point-getting skills properly. Magic and Abdul showed amazing chemistry together, and Abdul won the blocking leader title, and for the 6th time, the MVP award. After that, in the playoffs, in the first round, 4-1, in the second round, another 4-1, made all the strong teams in the West drop to their knees, and made their way to the finals. And the opponent they would face would be the symbol of Michael Jordan, the first player to successfully dunk from the free throw line, Afro Man, Julius Erving. He was a former player for the competing league against the NBA, the ABA, and after the ABA went south in 1976, he moved over to the NBA and started to play for the Philadelphia 76ers. Most players from the ABA were not able to survive because they weren't as skilled, but with great dunks and similarity to Michael Jordan, he shook many hearts of younger players. Julius Erving was enough to be known as a superstar and showed great performances in the NBA. And because so, Philadelphia did not go down so easily against the Lakers. After they went back and forth in an intense battle, it was tied 2-2 in the finals. And Abdul had a mindset to get the lead no matter what, and the 5th game was at home, so he didn't want to lose his opportunity, and he played his hardest, like never before. But while he had 26 points and going, he had suddenly injured his ankle. And all of a sudden, the atmosphere in the stadium was completely dark. Not being able to go in the locker room, Abdul's mindset and condition was very serious. But because of his past failures, he really did not want to lose his chance. So he went back in the game limping around. And it was a close game with both teams having a chance to win. And in the 4th quarter, while enduring all the pain and playing, Abdul would finish off by getting 14 points and barely finishing the 5th game with a victory. And so, with the leader of the Lakers' desperate play, they had gotten a chance to win the championship with one more game. But unfortunately, the 6th game was away, and Abdul-Jabbar was in no condition to play. So the Lakers decided to prepare for the 7th game and made Abdul stay in LA and rest. And while everyone had gave up on winning the 6th game, there was one player that wasn't on the same page, and that was Magic Johnson. He confidently played center instead of Abdul, and he showed determination to win no matter what. And while Philadelphia was looking down on LA, Magic had put up 42 points and got the most rebounds out of both teams, with 15 rebounds. His position was center, but his playing style was the same as always, so these random plays the opposing team was not ready to guard. As a result, they were left in chaos in the defensive zone, and the Lakers, with that momentum, would by a 16-point deficit defeat Philadelphia and take the championship. Hearing the results from afar, Abdul was not able to share his happiness with them on the court, but he was still happier than anyone, and he was able to get the chip off his shoulder and focus on recovering now. And from there, to help his legs and arms become more flexible, he started yoga, and with that effort, his skill had gotten better and was able to keep his place as the #1 point getter on the team. And 2 years later, meeting Philadelphia in the finals again, and this time not getting injuries, won 4 games to 2, lifting the championship cup for himself this time. And after getting the championship twice in the Lakers, Abdul was now getting into his mid-30s, and Magic Johnson was the new key player. But when it came to point getting, Abdul was still #1. And his secret weapon, the skyhook shot, was still unstoppable and was on top. And conquering the NBA with this technique, on April 5th, 1984, he became the #1 point getter in history. And after that, he worked on keeping his body in shape, and without much injuries, he finished the regular season coming first in the Western Conference. And again, in the playoffs, eliminated the top teams in the West, and made his way to the finals. And from there, they would face off against Magic Johnson's rival, Larry Bird, leading the Boston Celtics. At the time, the Lakers not even once had beaten the Boston Celtics in the finals, so pride was on the line with these two teams facing off. But in very important situations, Magic would miss free throw shots, and Bird would take advantage and put up precise points, and as a result, even though the Lakers had the lead in the beginning of the series, would lose 4 games to 3 and kneel before Boston. And after losing to a team they shouldn't have, Abdul and Magic had really bared down and gotten serious. Now, at an age that should be considering retirement, 37 years old, Abdul-Jabbar, because of his revenge, his offense had become very sharp. And he went around savagely taking down teams, so his stats had gotten better than before. And these sightings were happening for his teammates as well. And automatically, the Lakers were in first place in the Western Conference. And in the playoffs, with only 2 losses, plowed their way through all the way to the finals. And at the same time, Boston, with Larry Bird's performances, would also plow through the strong teams in the East and arrive in the finals. And even though there was pressure in the first game because it was in Boston, the Laker players were already ready with grit. So they were not distracted at all from the Boston fans' pressure and only focused on playing the game. But on this day, Memorial Day massacre of a name was made, and the Lakers would lose to Boston by a 34-point deficit. And at the same time, Abdul was completely stopped by the opponent's defense and couldn't do anything, and only put up 12 points and 3 rebounds, taking in a humiliating loss. Losing the game like that, Abdul was feeling quite guilty, so he told his teammates that this will never, ever happen again. And after entered the second game, more focused than he ever was. And even though the opponent's defense were hitting his hands trying to stop him, he only focused on successfully putting in his skyhook shots. He also had the mindset to not give a single point to the opponents while on defense, and he hid away any balls that went even near the net. And whether there was a player in front of him or not, he showed amazing dunks, just slamming them down. And so Abdul, putting up 30 points, won the second game, and the series was tied 1-1. And in the next 3 games that were at home, he had close to a 28-point average, and so won 2 games out of 3. Now in a situation with 3 wins to 2 in the series, heading into the 6th away game that could be his last, Abdul-Jabbar didn't want the feeling of humiliation and guilt towards his teammates, like in the first game, so he pulled himself together and played his best. And as a result, the Lakers against the Boston Celtics had won for the first time in NBA history. And with that hell of a run, with determination, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, as a Laker player, had won the Finals MVP for the first time. And 2 years later, met Boston again in the Finals, and getting the spotlight on offense and defense, he had again won the championship. Finishing off the war against Boston and entering the 87-88 season, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. His age would now be 40 years old, and of course, had taken a toll on him, and his other stats had also taken a toll, and his average points was now below 15 points, showing how much he had dropped. But he was still enough to be picked as an all-star. His presence alone made him a top-tier NBA center. But there was a problem that occurred. And that was a team that was known to be notorious, the Detroit Pistons. At the time, the players on that team were known as the Bad Boys, showing very aggressive play. Playing dirty while the rest weren't looking were the basics. and when the air was getting too heated, they would just get in full-on fistfights. But fortunately, they were in the Eastern Conference, so in the past playoffs, Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics had eliminated them. But in the 87-88 season playoffs, the Bad Boys had beaten Larry Bird and made their way to face off against the Lakers in the finals. Now having to fight against not Boston, but an unexpected Detroit Pistons, they're a bit shook. But the Lakers were a strong team, and the first game was at home, so everybody expected the Detroit Pistons to lose. But what's this? Thinking the Bad Boys defense was all about toughness, they were actually surprisingly very organized and strategical. And on offense, they would take the momentum of the Lakers and use that fast tempo to shake up the Lakers, and also had very precise shooting as well. And on another note, Abdul only put up 8 points and 2 rebounds, showing poor performance, and his other teammates weren't doing great as well, so the Lakers lost by a 12-point deficit. And in the next game, with all their offense getting shut down and losing the momentum, it was expected that they would lose. But fortunately, Abdul and his teammates pulled it together in the last bit of the game and barely took the victory. And in the third game, that was away, they won by a 13-point deficit. But from there, Detroit's play was getting more and more aggressive, so the Laker players had lost complete control of the game. And even though Abdul-Jabbar had gotten 26 points in one of the games, in the fourth and fifth game, the Lakers by 25 and 10-point deficit would lose the games completely. So the Lakers were now cornered, and in a situation where they needed to win the next 2 home games. And in the start, because of the opposing team's offense that was pouring down, it looked like they were going to lose the 6th game. But just then, like the heavens were looking out for them, the leader of the Bad Boys, Isaiah Thomas, had injured his ankle, and the Lakers had a come-from-behind victory by 1 point. In the final 7th game, Thomas was unable to beat his injury and couldn't play, and luckily, the Lakers were able to win the championship once again. And these two teams, a year later, faced off again in the finals, but at the time the Lakers, with Magic Johnson and a couple other key players being injured, went through some tough times. And Abdul, not being the same like he was in his prime, had given up the championship to the Detroit Pistons. And this would be the last day for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he would retire. It has indeed been a very long time. Abdul-Jabbar's career has started in 1969 and has already been 20 years. And in that time, playing against legendary beasts such as Wilt Chamberlain and other players, he tried his best to reach the top of the food chain in the NBA. As a result, he had gotten the championship and the regular season MVP 6 times, and as the key point getter on his team, he set a new record for points, getting 38,387 points, a record that no one could beat. There were many more achievements he had accomplished, but just with those, Abdul was enough to be considered a god and was on par with even Michael Jordan himself. And because so, after deciding to retire in the 88-89 season, in all the away games, the opposing players and fans had given a round of applause to show their respects to him. And in the finals, where he would play his last games, Abdul-Jabbar had gotten applause from the Laker fans and Detroit players, no matter who had won or lost, having a very successful conclusion to his career. And after this, Abdul-Jabbar, the UCLA school he attended, Milwaukee Bucks, and the LA Lakers, his uniform and his number 33 was put up, and he was picked as the top 50 players in the NBA history. And after, he spent a lot of time helping the community and Abdul to help those with issues like illiteracy, racism, and starvation, wrote books and made speeches. And for basketball, he taught students his knowledge of basketball and opened a Skyhook Foundation. In February 2019, Abdul-Jabbar had sold all his championship rings and other goods in an auction, which made quite the controversy. And from there, Abdul stated in an interview, "If young kids get the chance to learn various types of education, I would sell everything I own." He would rather give up his own needs to help his team he was a part of and the community. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to this day is respected as a legend by many athletes.